In this video, I want to talk to you about the development of facture in the Western tradition and present the work of living artists who have mastered direct painting. Van Eyck was a painter from the Northern Renaissance, and he wanted his paintings to look as realistic as possible. This was common with all of the Italian and the Northern Renaissance artists. They're narrative painters. They wanted it to look realistic, and so they used and formulated techniques like chiaroscuro to create that high level of naturalism. When we get in close to Van Eyck's painting, though, we can really see how the painting is made, and this is what we call facture. We've talked about this already, but here I want to present it to you and show you how it developed a little bit from the Renaissance to the modern period, and then we're going to look at contemporary artists. And so we're going to call this descriptive facture. When you look closely at paintings in museums or at detailed photos like these, you can see the artist facture, meaning the handling of the paint. Look at how Da Vinci's glazed these trees and how softly he blended paint to describe the face of Ginevra da Benci in the 1470s. Her eyes look weird though, they don't look real. But when we back away, the overall effect is naturalistic. Da Vinci's way of glazing has even been called sfumato. It has a special word derived from the words smoke and shade. And it's just basically, the smoothness of his glazing has this kind of smoky quality. Just because it's smooth doesn't mean we can't see how it's done. Like Van Eyck, we're going to call Da Vinci's facture descriptive in nature. In the 17th century, Johannes Vermeer did something pretty cool. He used a camera obscura to observe his subjects and captured the effect in his paintings. We know this today partly because of his facture. Look at the little blips of paint that describe the crust of the bread or the details of the clothing. Check out the soft edge of the milk pot under her arm and the atmospheric glow of light flaring above her wrists. These are all photographic effects that photographers use today descriptively and for aesthetic reasons. Vermeer could, in a sense, be called the inventor of what today is called bokeh photography. Rembrandt's facture, whether we're talking about his use of impasto on the face or sgraffito, the scraping of the brush handle to describe hair, his handling of paint is more physical than the three artists we just looked at. The effect is that the paint actually becomes the object depicted. Rembrandt made paint become flesh. Rembrandt's facture is descriptive, but it also has such a strong presence that we are made aware of the materials and the surface of the painting while feeling an absolutely convincing pictorial space and solid, heavy form. Some would argue that Rembrandt's facture planted the seeds for modern painting. It takes a couple centuries between Rembrandt and Monet for the ideas of modernism to develop in painting, and whether it had to do more with growing up with the invention of photography, or with impatience with academic techniques and goals, or the ease of using the newly invented paints packaged in portable tubes, Monet, the revolutionary, showed the world that a painter is not a machine that copies nature, that a painter is not merely a storyteller, and that through his facture, a painter can communicate his direct experiences. Monet's painting impression Sunrise, through his facture, captures the moment of his perception. He communicates light, air, space, and time. Those that came after Monet further developed the connection between materials, design, actions, and the painting as an object. Van Gogh's Starry Night so clearly reveals the mind of the artist. His thoughts about God, nature, and the church are laid bare in his facture, the materials, color, and the other design elements. Van Gogh embodies his subjectivity in the form of his work. Cézanne's work, his bathers, they're not natural at all. Neither are the trees or the clouds or any of the other figurative components in his work. Cézanne shows us that a painting is a construction, that it may make us feel pictorial space and form, but that these are mental projections provided by the viewer. Cézanne, as a painter, works in abstractions, and he builds an object. At the same time Monet, Van Gogh, and Cézanne were pushing painting deeper into abstraction and expression, American painters were starting a movement of their own. William Merritt Chase and Charles Hawthorne opened schools of paintings where they taught younger painters to work directly from life, out of doors in the open air under the sun, and to paint their perceptions of light, form, and space by focusing on color relationships. No longer were painters to use formulated techniques to describe form in a naturalistic way, or to tell stories. These painters were painting perception itself. Edwin Dickinson, one of Hawthorne's students, became a teacher as well, and he taught his students how strange and mutable perception is. The mind plays tricks, and reality, in memory, blends with dreams and intentions. There were other schools of painting from around the world that focused on facture as a central organizing principle. One of these, the Euston Road School, was influential on many painters in London. William Coldstream taught his students to measure visually, directly from the subject, and then create a modern painting, much in the line of Cezanne, painting being an object. One of his students, Ewan Uglow, continued this approach in his own work and in his teaching. Several painters in this presentation continue to practice this methodical measuring of form and space and the construction of the painted object. In 1992, Victor Erice, the Spanish film director of The Spirit of the Beehive, created the documentary of Antonio Lopez Garcia's work titled Dream of Light. In this film, Mr. Lopez Garcia struggles to paint a quince tree behind his studio. His method of careful observation and academic direct technique are central to the film, as they structure Lopez Garcia's sincere attempt to translate perceptual moments with the tree into a beautiful work of painting. His method inspired many painters around the world because of this film, but maybe even more significant is Lopez Garcia's sincerity. The 1990s was a time of transition from postmodern irony and cynicism to more sincere modes of expression. Painters were only a small part of this cultural shift, which has been much more obvious in television and film. But with high-profile artists like Antonio Lopez Garcia leading the way, painters turned away from theory-based work to embrace academic practices that had almost been lost in art schools and university art programs. Ateliers or studio schools started popping up around the world, and there's been a resurgence of observational direct painting that has only grown since that time. One such school is the Jerusalem Studio School, directed by Israel Hirschberg. Mr. Hirschberg to this day continues a summer painting program in Italy at Civita Castellana in the Lazio region where Corot painted his now famous studies. Several painters in this presentation have worked with Mr. Hirschberg in Italy. With the development of social media, painters from every corner of the globe have now come into contact with each other's work. This has fueled the growth of the movement in painting that I am about to present to you. I reached out to over 40 contemporary painters working today whose work I've come to know through social media. These are all painters who I greatly admire and who continuously inspire me to paint better. I'm going to stop talking now and let you enjoy their work, and I want you to think about their facture, their use of color, their use of design, their approach towards the paint as a material and the surface, and the painting as an object, or as a window, or as both. Thank you. I hope you enjoy the presentation.